Just a cold morning today. We have 9 degrees in Annandale, Silver Spring coming in at 12, Laurel coming in at 7 degrees right now, and it's...
I feel pretty confident we're going to do pretty well with something I've been working on here, doing a little bit of tinkering in my basement, actually in the garage, with this little Shake It head I made with a do-it mold. I actually flattened that out. When I trimmed the pour spout, I kind of made that flat intentionally. Instead of just cutting that spout off, what I want to do is put it at a little bit of an angle, and I'm just going to make a flat. You can see where that's started there. I've already started to make it flat. I'm going to come at it from a different angle. And this one, I mean, it's going to trim some weight off, so you're not going to end up really with an 1/8. It's going to be something less than that. The idea for that is that it's just going to stand up when it you know, hits the bottom of the river or wherever I'm fishing. So this is a little finesse worm. I think it's actually for drop shotting, but I think I've played around with it in the sink with some water, and I poured these with floating soft plastic. I'll just go ahead and screw that on there, give it a shot. Better one. I could actually look down and see the wood he was hanging on. I'm out in my workshop in the garage, and I'm going to show you how to make the Shake It head, and in a little while we'll go over and we'll shoot some of those worms. I'll start with the mold. This is it. It's the Do It Shake It Jig shaky head type mold, and you got 16th up through 3/8. I was mostly using the 1/8, and I found with some of the hooks I had to, on the 3/16 and 1/4, I actually used my Dremel tool here, and I had to make those, you know, those spots for the hook eyes a little bit bigger. So you lay your hook in there, and that's one good option. Here's another one. I forget what exactly that is, but that's the one I used for the most part. And these are actually not what the mold calls for. These are the small hitching posts from Do It. It calls for these these little screw locks. Now when I did that, it ended up with this right here, which will work. But for such a small diameter worm, that diameter of screw was kind of big, like it was tearing it apart. So this is just a tighter, you know, a tighter screw, so that when you screw that onto the head, it doesn't rip it apart. So use the small hitching post, and you got to mess with it a little bit just to get it to fit in there, just so. But you know, you'll play around with it. You'll figure it out. Get that little screw in there. There it is. Alright, we'll close that sucker up. Pour it. And that's what you end up with. Now, I've done something sort of interesting when I trim it. I use my my little nail cutters there. I'm not gonna cut it so it's round like that. I'm gonna try to cut it at an angle so it's flat and it'll stand up a little bit better. So that, along with the fact that these little worms are floating, and you know, it's gonna want to orient straight up and wiggle that little tail, those together really creates a very nice vertical presentation up off the bottom. Alright, let's go over to the other part of the shop. We're going to shoot some of these worms now. Alright, what I used is some real dark green, and I actually used this stuff, this super floater bubbles, and it's kind of like a powder. You mix that in. I'll go ahead and open this up and show you this really dark one that we did. And I'll show you the mold. You get the molds at Do It Soft Baits. And this particular one shoots 4 of them. You just kind of pinch off that worm there. There it is. You crank out 4 of them at a time with this mold. Love all those ridges. Nice looking finesse bait with that paddle tail. Real nice action. Great for drop shotting too, I bet. I haven't done it yet, but I bet that's going to be real good for a drop shot.
Got a real nice one here. Up in the eddy behind this ledge right here. Very nice fish. We took it deep. Oh yeah. That's a good one right there. That's a 4-pound fish plus. That's a nice one right there. He's just over, he's 20 1/4 inches. I'm gonna get a weight on him here in a second. We're up at the top of this eddy. You know, we have a nice winter pool below us where we've been catching a lot of these little fish, but a fish that big has to eat a lot. And this was definitely, I mean, this isn't currentless water. There's a lot of current swirling around in there. And a fish that big does have to eat a lot in winter. Look how deep he took that tiny little worm. Dude had to eat. I'm gonna pop this out, and just such a good sticky little hook. Yep. And I'm sure that floating straight up, tail up presentation really got his attention. So sticky hook, nice action on the bait, big fish. Let me get a weight on him. All right, nice 4-pound, 7-ounce, 20 1/4 inch largemouth on a day where we're scarcely over freezing. That's because of spring influence. So we'll go ahead and let this fat fish go. Nice big one.